Hundreds of Maine families know the trauma of a house fire. Losing a home and belongings can bring about total upheaval in life, sometimes for years. A family in Berwick knows that all too well. After 2 years, they are now rebuilding. And as 207's Don Kerrigan shows us, they're getting by with a little help from their friends.
Take your brace out. Take your brace out. We got to come down and move a strap.
With beams and posts and timber frame trusses.
Loosen to come along. It'll be fine.
And with chisels and mallets and a great big crane.
You guys with the braces are going to engage both a little bit as we come into the teasel.
Aaron and Michelle Sturgis are rebuilding their dream.
Coming down. Beautiful.
Oh my gosh, it feels surreal. It feels so. I'm just filled with joy. I feel like my cheeks hurt because I'm smiling so much.
They had a dream home here before. Aaron, whose business is restoring old timber frame buildings, had put up an old barn on this spot years ago, making it their house and business office, a shop, and more. The place where they got married, where they gathered with friends and family, the home they loved and shared with 4 beloved cats. But that was before the storm in July of 2020, before the lightning strike that started the fire that destroyed everything.
And there are still days where I think about what we had, and what we had built together, and
Right.
And yeah, it went in an instant.
The shock of sudden loss and heartbreak.
That night, I couldn't sleep because I hadn't found my cats
Right.
yet. And to think about them potentially suffering here.
The next day, they found out all the cats had died. The fire also devastating for the people working with Aaron's business. Emily runs the office.
Every time I look at the photos, I get verklempt. They're hard to look at. I mean, I would wish something like that on my worst enemy. It's devastating. Oh.
And Dan Boyle, a 25-year member of their building team.
Everything you've worked for and built is just going up in smoke. Yeah, it was terrible.
And as today shows, this is a story about both loss and joy. Because after losing everything to that fire, Aaron and Michelle found they had more friends and neighbors than they ever knew. And they have helped them build back.
It's going. You're almost there.
They had lived in Berwick for years, and their town turned out.
An instant later, we had community help.
Longtime working friendships, like crane operator Rick Geddes.
Because I had a fire in '88 and lost everything. So I knew exactly how he was feeling. And I called him that day and I said, whatever I can do to ever help you.
And close friend Bob Cantwell and his sons brought their excavators.
And the fire department couldn't knock the building over and couldn't get the fire out. So Bob came with his excavator on a moment's notice and helped to carve enough holes in the roof.
Many others helped too, but a neighbor named Stephen, whom they barely knew, gave him his house.
He came immediately. They were just sort of, you guys were acquaintances, and he offered his house. And he works in Boston, so we had the house to ourselves all week.
They shared that house with Stephen for 6 months.
We had Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's at Stephen's, because we were all on lockdown.
Later on, another work friend put them up for 2 months in his house.
There we go. Okay, come on down nice and slow.
Until they were able to move into the old barn foundation, and Aaron and his crew could begin building the new barn frame while keeping the business going at the same time.
Keep going, Jake, keep going.
And all of this during some of the most worrisome times of the COVID pandemic. But that didn't stop people in Berwick from helping.
It was an interesting dynamic at a time when we're supposed to be keeping our distance and, keeping safe, that everybody came together and wanted to help and wanted to be together for us.
Including Tricia Arnold, who works at the local Cumberland Farms and brought them groceries and even a refrigerator for the shed that she paid for.
Sometimes it's better to go without for the sake of others, I think.
That's a pretty good attitude.
I think everybody should be that way.
All right, plumb it up, brace it off. Looking good. Yeah.
So many things to celebrate, and
Yeah.
yeah, I just continue to be filled with more and more gratitude.
For more than 2 years, they have lived with loss and with joy in this same place that will, once again, be home.
Parts of that story may resonate with other Mainers who've had to go through a fire, because it seems there are almost always friends and neighbors who are there to help. Rick Geddes, the crane operator, told us that he thinks the world is a circle. You get to give a little and take a little. And that barn that you saw being raised, it now has walls and a roof just in time for winter. It'll be months before Aaron and Michelle and the business can move back in, but they say the inside at least will be dry.